Hi everyone, we're going to give a couple more minutes to begin. So welcome everyone to our PPCR talk. And today I'm so delighted to present Alexandra Gomez. Alexandra took the program back in 2012. Actually, she's a colleague and I can call her my friend. I'm really honored to have her and also really happy with all her great achievements in her career. So Alexandra did her internal medicine residency at UM and at Jackson at Miami, Florida. Then she did her fellowship training at Well Cornell Medicine. And then after that, she did another training in bone marrow transplantation in Sloan Kettering, in Memorial Sloan Kettering Center in New York City. Right now, she's an assistant professor at the same place, and it's so great to have her. I know that she has a lot of commitments, and I know I'm certain that all of you will learn a lot from her. She's a medical graduate from Colombia and an international medical graduate, and all her experience and and uh, and her tracks and how all her energy have been evolved is great to be admired. So thank you, and Alejandra, I will stop sharing right now. Thank you once more for being here. And as Professor Fregni said, we miss you in the team. She was also part of the teaching assistant group, and but because of her duties, he couldn't continue anymore.
Thank you so much, Alma, for that kind introduction, and thank you for the invitation. It's actually a real pleasure to be here. And as I said to many people, PPCR is very dear to my heart. I did this in 2012, and I think my career changed a lot because of this. So very happy just to share some of my thoughts, and let me just share my screen. And I think you have it now.
Yes, we can see it now. Thank you.
Perfect. So this is going to be very informal, and I hope you guys can get a little bit of my experience and my experience that I've had with other people, but also just to have time for questions and answer like any doubts that you might have. So no disclosures except that this is just my way. Like I'm going to share how I got where I am right now. And I'm going to share what I've learned around the process during this time. I'm also going to share like some of the experience from my friends. But my main disclosure is that there's many ways to get where you want. And you just have to take the best out of people's experience and just get inspired and try to do this for your own experience. So Alma just did this a little bit, but this is what my CV looks like. And I graduated from University of Andes University in Bogota, Colombia in 2011. And then I decided during my university years that I wanted to have the possibility of training here. I wasn't sure I wanted to do it, but I wanted to have this possibility. So I decided that during my medical school, I was going to do my USMLEs. I went to Kaplan and I got all the information. And then for me, it was like, I studied them as I was studying for my medical school. I never stopped, which now I think it was like crazy years, but I was able to do them while I was finishing medical school. And then at the end, I decided that I did want to do my rural year. Like for so many countries in Latin America, we have to do a social service year. So I did my rural year in a very small town outside Bogota, like 3 hours away. And it was one of the greatest experiences for life. I'm always proud that I was able to do that. But then in 2012, because I wasn't able to apply for residency during my rural year, I decided that I needed this transitional year while I applied. And I found about PPCR, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but it was just this great opportunity to get to get some skills in clinical research while I was doing some rotations. And then afterwards with that, I ended up going to Miami. And then from Miami, I came to Cornell. And from Cornell, I came to MSK. And then 15 years later, after starting medical school, I now have my first, I'm just going to put this into laser pointer. I have my first academic position and I just started. And if you look this, it seems like it all was like very like one after the other. But the truth is that this is what people want of a goal, and the road is more like this. And I know that I'm here, but my road is just starting again. I know that I'm just starting as a new position. I'm starting in academic medicine, and the road ahead is still like this. But it's a process, and I feel like we just have to enjoy the whole process. It took me 15 years from starting medical school to get my first attending job, but it's part of life, and I feel like I've enjoyed the ride quite a lot, and I feel very honored and fortunate to have had that. So what I'm going to do now is just try to share some principles of what I've found during these years, like by my experience and by like mentoring other students and by having had mentors that have done this road as well, just what I think is important to consider when you're thinking about coming to the US for training. So the first thing is know your specialty. And why is that? Well, this is just numbers from the National Residency Matching, like the match program in the US. And just I wanted to do internal medicine. And I know that 43% of the people that match in internal medicine are from international medical graduates, IMGs. However, I know that for surgery, this number drops to 2.4%, so 178 spots compared to 3,239 spots. That doesn't mean that you cannot match in radiation oncology. That matched 2 people last year. One of my dearest friends from Colombia is a radiation oncologist now. But it just means that you have to prepare a little bit better. So what I mean by know your specialty is saying nothing is impossible, but you have to know the challenges within your specialty. And definitely know and be prepared that for non-IMG friendly specialties, dermatology, radiation oncology, urology, certain surgical specialties, you will need to have quite more effort to get to where you want to be. And you need to prepare for it. This is all that it means is that you need to prepare for it. It doesn't mean that it is impossible, but you just need to prepare for it and be the best candidate that you can. So the principle number 2 that I think is people, when they start to consider applying to the US, they feel that the USMLE is the main thing. And my perspective is it is a very important thing, but it's not the main thing. It's just one of the gateways. So I'm showing you, this is called the interactive charting outcomes in the match. It's actually a web page. You can access it, you can look and you can play with them. And you can say like, if I have this score and if I want this specialty, and I'm a foreign medical graduate, and this is the number of research publications, and this is what I've had in my CV, what are the chances of matching? And what I'm going to show you right now is the difference between internal medicine for US grads versus IMGs according to their step 1 score. So for US grads, this is on green, everyone that match. Regardless of their lower scores, there's still a large percentage of people that match. However, there's a larger percentage that they don't match. For people that are international medical graduates, you can say that scores do matter. They start to have here like 210, like you have higher chances of matching. However, it tells me 2 things. One, even if you have a lower than average score, you can still match, right? But 2, even if you have an extraordinary score, you might run into a problem and not match. So knowing this is important because it's going to change your perspective about the USMLE. the USMLE does not define your success. So if this is the USMLE scores for general surgery, so same thing again for US grads, of course, higher chances of matching if you have a higher score, but same thing happens, even with higher scores, people still don't match. For IMGs, then you see the numbers are quite smaller. And if you don't believe me, there's still like a green dot here, and there's a couple of green dots here, but definitely having a higher score helps. So what I'm going to say about this principle is most programs have a cutoff, and the cutoff just determines if the program is going to review or not review your application. So when I was internal medicine resident at University of Miami, I had time to actually help review some of the applications when I was a third year, and they just showed me the ones that were on top of that cutoff. Unless something else happens, someone calls or someone knows the person that is under that cutoff, those applications are not going to get seen. And that is the problem for many programs. So this is why we have to work hard to try to meet that cutoff. But as I said, a less than average USMLE score is not the end of the road. And a good USMLE score does not mean success. So take that into account, prepare for your exams. I'm not going to talk here about like how you prepare for your exams. I think there's a lot of information out there, and I'm going to give you a lot of resources at the end, but you have to prepare for it. My biggest recommendation is to make a plan, know when you want to take them, and stick to it. It's easy to say, I'm just going to delay for another month, but and it can turn into a year and a half. But if you're very consistent with what you want to study every day, it's a better way to try to like get done with those exams as quickly as possible. So the next thing that I'm going to say is, this is the part that gets interesting. So this is the part that starts to define who are you as an applicant from international medical graduate school compared to a US grad. And the third principle is that you're going to have to start building your skills. And what are the skills that you need? So the first skill that everyone needs is clinical experience in the US. So people think about getting observerships or clerkships as an opportunity to get a letter of recommendation. And I always tell them, yes, that's one of the goals, but that's not the only goal. The goal is that you're going to meet potential mentors. So I'm going to stop here and tell you a little bit about my experience. So when I was in medical school as a last year student, so I was an intern, what we call intern in Colombia, I went to the University of Miami program, and my rotation was hematology consult. And during that rotation, I was lucky enough that the person that was the attending on that rotation was Dr. Harrington, which is one of the directors of the Harrington program, was created by his brother. And just by luck, I got to have him as my attending. And during that month, I did every single consult for hematology on that service. And because of that great experience, I was able to match in the University of Miami, but then Dr. Harrington became one of my mentors during residency. And when I was in residency, I was talking about applying to fellowship and applying to hematology oncology, either in University of Miami or elsewhere. And he sat with me one day and he said, you know what, Alex, I think that people always learn more from leaving institutions, even though I want you to be here, like I want you to stay in Miami and be an attending here, you should also look elsewhere. Because if you find a better training program or you feel like the opportunity is better, you might have a better experience to make you come back better prepared. So because of that, I actually did an externship rotation, like I did an elective rotation when I was a second year resident at I came to Cornell because Cornell was one of the main programs that I wanted to get. And by luck, again, I did a hematology consult service rotation, and the person on that service was Dr. Schaefer, which was the previous president of the American Society of Hematology. And he has been one of the most compassionate and amazing mentors I've ever had in my life. He has been one of those life mentors that you want to get one day in your career. And he's that person for me. And this just happens because I came here just to do a clerkship. So when I say get clinical experience in the US, you are not only doing this observership for the letter of recommendation, you might also find an amazing mentor. And we're going to talk more about mentorship. What else you're going to get? You're going to get to know the system. So I've heard people say, like, look, I'm already an internal medicine graduate from another country, and I feel like I'm better prepared than anyone starting as an intern. And I always tell them, sure, I think your clinical skills probably are very good, but you do not know the system. And one of the main things that's going to define how good you are, especially during that first year of internship, is how well you get around the system. Are you able to read an HPI, which is a history and physical, and like history of present illness, and you're going to see this massive, like it's a text that doesn't have a single word. It starts with 38-year-old, just YO, female, with past medical history of DM, CAD, AKI, CKD, and HIV, and all these other acronyms that we use all the time to make a note. And then the attending is going to tell you all the medications that he wants you to start in non-generic forms. And if you're not used to the system or how it works here, it's going to take some time to get used to it. So the chances to, like, the opportunity to do an away rotation in the US is because you're going to have some clinical experience. So by the time you actually become an intern, you're better prepared and better matched to start your residency program. So the second thing about doing this is getting to know the system. The third thing is to be a team player. I think that once we start to come and get involved in the system, you're going to see how teams work. So you have maybe a fellow, maybe a third-year resident, maybe an intern, maybe a sub-I, which is one of the medical students from the last year from the American schools, and maybe one or two observers. And you're going to feel that you will have to be there to impress your attending, because at the end, this is the letter of recommendation that you want. But for me, for example, my intern when I was in a hematology rotation in Miami ended up being my chief fellow that ended up doing hematology afterwards. And he also was one of the main persons that helped me prepare my application when I was doing fellowship. So being a team player is important because you're going to learn how to network, and every part, like every step of the way, you will never know who you're going to meet that will later be able to like give you their experience or help you out figuring out how to match here. It's also going to improve your clinical skills. And I think that's something that we never stop doing. We become doctors and we're always like learning. But for example, when I did my electives as an intern and during my my in-between year between finishing my social year, my rural year and starting internship, I did a couple of rotations in bone marrow transplant because I thought I already knew what I wanted, which turned out to be correct. But by the time I started as an intern, I had spent probably like 3 months in a bone marrow transplant unit. And I think I knew much more about transplant than my third-year residents that had never been exposed to an allogeneic transplant. And that has helped me, like, I don't know, you're gonna always try to learn a little bit more. So getting clinical experience in the US is gonna be a chance just to improve your clinical skills. At the end, you wanna match here because you wanna be a good doctor and you wanna be a good clinician, a good researcher, and this is part of the deal. So take that opportunity to improve your clinical skills. And you're gonna have time to evaluate potential programs. So people always ask me, where should I do my observerships or where should I do my clerkships? And the first answer for me is wherever you want to match. Like if you think that University of Miami or Cornell for me for fellowship was the like program that you like the most, do a rotation there. Like the fact that they get to know you personally for an entire month and you get to work with them and you get to like experience the program is gonna give you way better chances of matching there than going somewhere else. Doesn't mean that you are not gonna match anywhere else if you don't go there, especially not every program has those away rotations, but just be mindful that if you think that you wanna stay in a specific geographical location, do a observership or a clerkship there. For example, a lot of people go to Mayo Clinic. I love Mayo Clinic. I think I have many friends that are from there and they've trained there, and I have many friends that stay there. But I would never imagine myself living in Minnesota, in Rochester. And even though it could have been a great opportunity to get a letter of recommendation, I decided to go to Miami first before Mayo. And for me, it worked out. For other people, Mayo might be the better program. Maybe you're going to get a more famous person to write your letter of recommendation, but I think it's hard to make those comparisons. And I feel like wherever you go, you just want to have the program that can give you a good letter of recommendation and on the specialty that you want. And then like this conclusion of all this is like your objective during this month is going to be better than the intern on the team. I never realized how many people come to do rotations every year until I became a resident. It's just amazing. I mean, when I was in Miami, I would have maybe 2 observers or 2 people doing clerkships during each rotation. Every month when during my fellowship, I had probably 3 or 4 from all around the world. And if you have 4 or 5 people doing rotations with you every single month, like it's hard. You need to stand out. And the people that stand out are the people that are team players, that want to acquire skills, that want to get to know medicine, and that are not only looking for the letter of recommendation, right? So all of this is just to say, yes, the letter of recommendation that's going to come from that rotation is important, but make sure that you're also taking advantage to get the other things that you can get from that rotation. So the 4th part that I usually say is you have to build your research skills. And I feel that, I mean, especially for me, the reason I came to the US to train was because I love the idea of having an academic medicine career. I love the idea of being able to perform research, be involved in research, and to see my patients. And I didn't know what it meant to do research until I joined PPCR. That was like my first introduction and the core basis of everything. But after that, I just realized that I need to acquire more skills. So the first thing that I say, that I think is we should de-emphasize publications and think about more like building your research skills. And don't get me wrong, publications are very important. We know that, it's numbers and numbers matter. But I think that having a little case report in a publication that nobody will ever read is not as important compared to having a whole year of research training as you guys are during PPCR. So for someone that is going to interview you, if you're able to rely that you got all these research skills, it's going to be more meaningful than if you got one little publication. So think about how you build your research skills. And everyone is going to continue to build those research skills as they move up in their career. So for me, I think for what PPCR gave me was a background in clinical research and conduct of clinical trials. It was a big introduction to statistics. I had epidemiology in my university, but never the same way, or I had never understood it the same way that I did during PPCR. And using stat data was amazing. I think I started to do my own stats after that. And you start and you need to practice. You're gonna if you don't practice it, you're gonna forget all about this. But after stats here, I've done so many stats classes that I cannot tell you about, but you are gonna have to keep doing this. The manuscript writing part was amazing, and a little bit of introduction of regulatory agencies and regulatory in clinical trials was also very good, just to have a basic knowledge of where you build your next foundation. So what was my life after PPCR? I think I've done a lot of statistical classes every time that it's offered through my residency or my fellowship. I've taken them. I've also taken a lot of online classes. I keep taking manuscript writing classes. I keep taking grant writing classes. And then as you grow in your career, there's gonna be young investigator awards for people to start building their own clinical trial or their research under supervision of a mentorship committee. So all of that came after PPCR. Now my next big thing is R. I've been doing a lot of R training for the past year. And just because in hematology oncology, I think like big data is moving forward so fast that these are the next skills that I want to get in my career. And I just keep getting training in it. So what you guys are doing in PPCR, it's already a big plus. And then the third thing, just to say something else about research skills, Dr. Ayello Teferi, it's one of the major hematologists in Mayo Clinic, and he gave a talk in the last American Society of Hematology. And I would never forget, like he said, research requires sacrifice, and he just emphasized it every single slide. But he also said, like, you have to invest in your skills. So right now you're investing in your skills of clinical research. So you're doing classes for epidemiology, stats, writing skills. You need to know how to manage EndNote or one of the reference managers. If you want to build your skills in a basic or translational career, especially for the students that want to come here, and a lot of students come here and they want to spend maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years in the lab. Those are great opportunities, but you need to know how to do a career developing plan for those 3 years. Make sure that when you join a lab, you get the mentorship, and we're going to talk about it. But you have to create a plan with clear objectives. What are the skills you want to get during these 3 years? What's going to be the time investment? Do you think like you have to talk to your PI and say, well, do you think if I stay here for a year, what I can get out of this? Can I have part of a publication, a bigger publication from the lab? If you think I stay here for 3 years, do you think I'm going to be able to get a little publication from myself as a first author? During the time that I'm here for 3 years, is there any type of research training that I can access? Do I have access to courses, to seminars, to like opportunities for postdocs, to grants? And that's how you develop those research skills that are going to later be useful for you when you start your residency. And all of this is just to say that you will create a great story with your skills. As you start applying, every skill that you got, it's going to be an opportunity to develop into something more. So the part 4 of building your skills, the part 3 of building your skills is networking skills. So I think that if you want to be an internal medicine doctor, you should join the Internal Medicine Society. And if you want to be a hematologist, you should join the American Society of Hematology. And this is just an opportunity. There's also options for international members, and there's also options for international students like you can apply for a resident, like as a resident, even if you haven't started your residency, you just let them know that you haven't started your residency and you're just graduated from medical school and are in this transition process, and they will grant you this. But this will grant you an opportunity to be aware of what the society is doing. They have mentorship committees for students, and it's just a great opportunity to find potential places and people you might want to work with or apply to. It's a good way. So what are the other networking things that you have to do? You have to find your peers. So when I wasn't thinking of applying to internal medicine, I think I reached out to anyone who said they knew someone who was doing internal medicine here. And it's very easy. I get this text probably like 3 times a month. It's like, hey, I got your contact from someone, and I wanted to ask you, like, this is my process, and I wanted to ask your experience about this. So know like what to ask to each of your of the persons that you meet, but use them as a resource, because everyone's going to share their story, and probably you're going to learn something new from each of them. Be resourceful. I think that if you're not resourceful and you just hope that everything goes according to your plan, but you're not reaching out, it's harder to obtain things. So be resourceful when writing to people, be resourceful when applying to other career developing programs. Use Twitter. I'm a big fan of Twitter now, and Facebook groups, there's some of them, but like I'm a big fan of Twitter. So academic Twitter has been the latest boom in academic medicine. It's a love-hate relationship, but it's more a love than a hate. And it's just because if you use it correctly, you can get things like this. So these are just screenshots that I had from people that got great stuff on Twitter. So this is just from August 12 from this year. And this is someone discussing to attendings how to write letters of recommendations for their students. For students that are applying, I think it's a great way to know or what you should give the person that is going to write your letter of recommendation when you ask for it, right? Because this is how they actually think about writing a letter. And it's a whole tutorial, like it's like 10 tweets with this post. It has 1,100 likes, so it's important, right? Like, what about this one? So this is a fellowship director who just finished up like reviewing all these applications and is writing a thread on personal statements. So if you're a medical student or if you're a recent grad and you're doing your personal statement for this year, please read this. I think it's a great way to know what actually, like what doctors think when they're reviewing your application and how to best address the concerns that they have. And this is another one about personal statement. And then finally, like the number 5 is like find the right mentor. And I cannot stress enough what the importance of a mentor is in your career. There are different types of mentors in your life. So I always tell, like, even my friends were mentors when I was younger, like, and when I was applying for, like, even like how to take the USMLE, I met people in Kaplan that ended up being my mentors for that process. When I was applying for rotations away, like, I found mentors that helped me during that process. My interns, as I told you, my intern that ended up being my chief fellow, and now my colleague, has been a mentor since that time. And your professor. So when people think about mentors, like they feel like it's just like this person that's going to give them. But I think there's a lot out there about what it means to have a mentor and what it means to be a good mentee. I think it's good to read a couple of them and actually know what is expected. I just put you here one of those articles that I thought was great and still like used a lot. It's like what makes a bad mentee and like how to avoid them being one of them, right? So if you're the type of mentee that overcommits and says that you're gonna say yes, yes, yes to writing all these things, and then at the end you don't actually have time to do one thing, you don't wanna be this mentee, right? So having a good mentor is gonna be building a relationship, and you're gonna have to try to find the best mentor at every step of your career. And then just my final thoughts, and people that know me, they joke that I overemphasize this, but I think it's important to learn how to tell your story. I think I've improved that since I started. I'm still trying to learn this, but you need to tell a story when you're applying, when you're doing your personal statement, when you're doing your ERA CV. It's not about just putting little notes. You want to tell a story when you're doing your CV there, during your interviews. And it's just another skill that you're going to use for the rest of your career. I've written a lot of grants for hematology and oncology, and I think more and more I realize that writing a grant is writing a story. It's like telling people why you think this is important and how you want to do it. And the best way to tell that, so make sure that the person who's reading it understands it, it's making sure that you can tell your story. So with that, I leave you some resources. So these are, you can take screenshots, or I think this is all great places that you can find information on how to apply to the match. These are great books. The First Aid for the Match or The Successful Match are good things to know. I think I read a couple of them when I was doing the process. Join Twitter, join Facebook, talk to people. But at the end of the day, it's just going to be how you try to get all these little components of your application together. But everyone is going to take some time. So with that, I think I just want to answer your questions. And if you have any specific concerns or questions that you have, I'm more than happy to discuss with you.
Wonderful, Alexandra. It was a great presentation, and all the content that you share is really valuable. And I believe all the students here and our colleagues who are also from PPCR alumni who have joined us here today have learned a lot about this process. Dear colleagues, if you want, you can open your mics or you can type the questions here in the chat. We haven't received any question yet. Let me check just again YouTube. No questions here.
Hi,
Hi, Damian. Sure.
Okay. Hi, Alexandra.
Hi.
I have just a question. For example, I just graduated medical school, and I have experience in the specialty I want is anesthesia. I did 3 months in Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, but I haven't presented yet the steps. Do you think it would be better, like, to wait for step 1 to change to pass fail, or try to present it while they still report numerical scores?
That's a question that I don't know if I know what to answer. I don't even know when they're going to change it. I don't know how is that going to change for the what I told you about the like this course system and how the residency programs are going to start evaluating candidates based on like the cutoffs that they have. Probably what they're trying to avoid is that cutoff. So to present or not, like to evaluate or not evaluate your presentation. I feel that if you're ready to, if you feel that you are the best prepared that you will ever be to your exam, I think that waiting to take an exam is painful. But if you feel that you should, like, if you want to delay the process, then you should wait. But I cannot tell you what's going to be best between pass, fail, or numbers. It's hard to say.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Good luck with that.
So that means some other colleagues have mentioned that probably the program directors are looking more at the CK score right now. That's another option, but yes, I agree that it's Alexandra, as Alejandra said, if you feel ready, take it.
Okay, yeah, because that's
It's a hard thing to say. I mean, and I don't know, like with COVID and everything, I haven't been following the news so closely about this. So just think about timing as well, like when you want to apply for your step 2 and when we would like to join the match.
okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Does anyone else have questions? Please feel free to type it, or if you are shy, or just open your mic.
Hi, I'm Catalina. I have a question.
Hi, Catalina.
Please go ahead.
Hi, I was wondering, you were talking about in the beginning of the presentation about getting to know the system. And since it's very different from what we learn here in Colombia, I was wondering if there was something, if there was a platform or some way that you would think we could start learning how this system works from here.
Yes. So the first thing is when you type, so the CS, the one that you have the supervised, you have a patient encounter, the step 2 CS is gonna help you get that. So if you want to start studying that, like the USMLE for the clinical skills exam is gonna tell you how to write an HPI, how to write a history and physical, how to use acronyms, like what type of questions they ask. I think there is a lot of like if you like those forums for medical students, they start sharing like what are the things that medical students should know from international medical graduates. Like for example, I always laugh when people like I didn't know forever, like I don't know, like I'm gonna write it here. I'm gonna do it in the screen that I have, but people, when they do labs, I don't know why I cannot do this. Let's see, 10. So when people do labs in the US, they put everything like here. I don't know if you've ever seen this. And here they put their white blood cell. Here they put the hemoglobin. Here they put the platelets. And here the hematocrit and the sodium and potassium. And anyway, like all of this, and then the glucose here. So when people are rounding, they just have these papers with numbers. And like I used to see them, I was like, what are they doing? I think that the only way is just study for the CS as a way to prepare, and read forums. And I think that once you start coming to a rotation, like the first day, I always have my observers like say like, okay, like what do you want to get from this rotation? And all of them will say like, oh, I want to apply to the US and I want to get a letter of recommendation. I was like, oh, great. Okay, so this is what it's gonna be. Like if I'm gonna do consults. So every time that I see a consult, if you're okay with it, I want you to pre-round, like try to see on the note, like see on the system, everything that you have for the consult. So you can present it to me and then we can discuss it and then we can go together and we can ask questions that we have. And then you can write your whole consult note with the physical exam and then we discuss the plan. And then by the time you are ready, like I want you to start presenting to the attending. And I think that is going to take practice. So most of the students that are good, or like the people that like are really into this, are going to really learn very quickly like how to do it. And you just ask your resident or your intern or your fellow and you start doing it. And then by day 2 or by day 3, they feel a little bit more confident to actually tell the presentation to the attending. And that's going to be the first rotation. But then the second rotation is going to be even better because you know already that. And then the third rotation is going to be better because you know that. And the only way to know is actually when you're reading the notes, when you're reading how they like type them, when you're reading like how they put their perspective together in a consult note or the discussion. And that's how you get used to the system. I don't know if that helps.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
It does.
Thank you, Alex. So we got another question from Luna Hurtado. She's asking, I'm a amateur medical student in Universidad de los Andes, and I was wondering if you have any suggestions for med students trying to figure it out what our specialty might be.
Okay. Yes, this is why I think that rule number 1 is know your specialty, right? So I think there are so many personalities in medicine, and I really hope you find the right specialty that fits your personality. And I think there's going to be many, even like they say like internists are the same, but I look at my friends that are internists and some of them are GI, like my best friend from Miami is a GI doctor and I'm a hematologist. We're completely opposite. So I feel that when you're a medical student, you just have to try to do as many rotations as you can. And like, especially the ones that you're interested, spend a little bit more time to see if you would actually see yourself doing this. And then you have to like make hard decisions. Meaning, if you want to do ENT or radiation oncology and you want to come to the US, well, is it going to make you happy if you match in the US only in ENT, or you're going to be happy if you match in the US with an alternative plan? And then you start from there. So I've always said, and it's also like here, like I know people that wanted to do fellowship and they wanted to be a leukemia doctor, but then they found that the better mentor was the myeloma doctor. And then for them, and they switched to be a myeloma doctor. Is it the end of the world? No, but they just got the right mentor and the right opportunities and the right thing to grow in their career. Same thing for medical students, and especially if you want to come here. If you think you like a specialty, try to do rotations there. Know if you really want it and know how bad you want it and if it's going to be worth the challenge, right? Because then it's not going to take 15 years, it might take 18 years because you might have to spend 3 years doing more research. But if that's what you want, then it's okay. But then if during the process you find out that maybe you like another specialty and maybe you have better opportunities to grow, and maybe you have a better mentor and you have better research opportunities there, then I would say take it, if it makes you happy, of course. So I don't know.
Great, thank you, Alexandra. Yes, and we got another question from Alejandro. He's asking, nice talk. One question: what do you recommend during the interviews? And PS regarding if you want to go back to Colombia or stay in the States.
Oh, that's a lovely question. I think you have to be honest. The more I think about it, it's so hard. Like now with the pandemic, it's so hard to make plans for like 3 months. Like it's hard to make plans when you're coming here and you're starting your training and you don't know what you're gonna be what are you gonna be doing 7 years later. I think that you should be honest and say, look, if I want to, I'm doing this process because I want to get my training here and I want to develop skills that maybe I wouldn't be able to get if I stayed in my country. But I don't know what the future may hold for me in 7 years or 6 years from now. But I'm open to the possibility of returning to Colombia or returning to your country, or I'm open to the possibility of continuing my academic career here. So I think that being honest is important. Of course, I even said that like University of Miami usually says like people should come back home when they finish it with the higher program. But I was open and I said like, yes, I mean, like, of course I want to go back to Colombia. I just don't know. And I don't think it affected me, but it's just the way how you answer it to make it be real. Real, like now I've also interviewed people and I know when people are more like telling me the answer that they think that I want instead of telling me the answer that I want from them, right? What we want is people that are honest and making sure that they're able to realize their story.
Great, thank you, Alexandra. Totally agree. And then with Gabriela Enriquez, I have another question. She's from Dominican Republic, and she's saying, how do you find balance for how do you balance your time during residency to combine the training with the research experience?
Oh, that's a great question, and I'm a big believer that you have to try to do it all. And I think people say like being a woman and being in medicine and being like, what the hell is going to happen with your life? I don't agree. I think that you can find your balance. It's hard. I think that there are times in life that we have to be very focused on what our academic goals are. And there are times in life that we have to be able to let go and enjoy our vacations and enjoy our weekends. I do say, like I told you guys, research has sacrifice, and for sure I have sacrificed a lot of things. But I think I've done a pretty good job of trying to have that balance. Like even when I was in medical school, like doing all these things, I was able to go out and like enjoy life and go partying and having drinks with friends. When I was an intern in Miami, my friend just visited me from like my first year there. Like we were, I don't know, maybe we were younger, but we would go out on like Friday night, maybe up till like midnight, and then would wake up the next day at 7 a.m. for our ICU call, and then maybe go out at night the same next day also until 7, like, I don't know, midnight, and then you wake up again on the next day. And you can do all of that if you first prioritize. So you need to know how to make sure that you get your priorities straight. What's the most important thing right now versus what's the most important thing in a week. Also prioritize your time off, your friends and your family. So no one is going to go through life and without having that. So I try as much as possible to save my weekends. I mean, it depends. If I have something due like last minute, I might have to work a little bit, but I also try to have the time to spend with family, with friends, to do the things that make me me. Read a good book that is not related to medicine, do exercise, have a good conversation with a friend, get connected with your family. Like my family is away and like they're all in Colombia, but I still talk to them pretty much every day. My sister, my parents, and just find the balance. And I think we have to learn, and it's something that I learned later in life, is work will always be there. You think that because you got your step done and then you're gonna be done. And then, like, as I said, you just go to the next road. And then the next challenge is gonna be at going to the residency. And then the next challenge is gonna be applying for fellowship. And then the next challenge is gonna be applying for your second challenge, like second fellowship. And then the next challenge is gonna be being attending. And then once you're in attending, you're like, oh, and like I have to develop all my research track and like all of it. So work never stops. And I think that as in humans, especially in medicine, we have to learn how to prioritize and know what we care and like what no, I should really focus my energy on this. And there are things that I should just let go. And if I do not apply for this grant that is due in a week, it's okay, because who cares? I will have the next one to do it. But if that's going to give me a little bit better quality of time with my family, then I'm up for that. So find your balance. I don't agree with just spending your time studying. I don't think that spending 15 years or 16 or 17 years of your life just doing that is enough, because you're going to miss a lot of good years.
Great, thank you, Alexandra. Great advice. And I agree, follow your passion and try to do your best and have balance for your own sanity too. Yes. And
Can I make you a question?
Sure, Pablo. Well, Pablo is a current student in the program, Alexandra, actually from my group.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, for the amazing talk. I would like to make you a question as we are talking about challenges and so on. I would like to know what was the biggest challenge you faced during your research career, and how did you deal with it? Do you have an advice for young researchers, junior researchers? And this is my first question, and the second is how did you how did you what are the best qualities that you classify to be the best to to choose your mentor?
Okay, that's
Two questions, sorry.
no problem. Good questions. So challenges in research. The first one is learn that you're going to face a lot of challenges and that most of the times it won't work the way that you want. And that failure is just part of research. So I'm just going to share from my experience. I mean, I feel I was very lucky that I got to do some research, some clinical research with like, it was bibliometric analysis, and it was just clinical research statistics when I was in Bogota. Then during my residency, I was in clinical research with a great mentor working in breast cancer. This is why I say it's important more the mentor than the person that you're working. Like, she was just one of the most amazing mentors, and she just gave me a project that she had the whole thing. She was like, look, I know you want to do hemonc and I know you want to do bone marrow transplantation, but I think that if you work with me, I will be able to give you 2 first author publications within a year and a half. And she said it like, for the first one, I need you to be able to do this, this, this. And then for the second one, I'm going to need you to do this, 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 and I can help you. And I can I just want you to know if you're committed or not. And then after discussing with my BMT mentor, he said, like, you should do that. It seems like a great opportunity. So I did. And that's how I got to like authors during my first author papers during my residency. And that helped me get into hematology oncology fellowship, that even though it wasn't breast cancer and not bone marrow transplantation. So like challenges in research, going to that question, is know that you are going to face certain like problems all along the way, but then you have to be resourceful into like how to change it. And then once I became like, to go back, like once it came to Cornell asked all the fellows to go into the lab. It used to be mandatory, now it's not. But then during my second year, so I spent a whole year and a half working in the lab. So I joined the lab of a great mentor called Monica Guzman. And she works with AML, with leukemia, and she works with mice models, where we give human leukemia into mice. So it's PDX models. And for a whole year, I worked with little mice, and where I injected leukemia cells, and I had to do bone marrow aspirates on mice. So like, if you can imagine doing a bone marrow aspirate, it's like giving a syringe that is like an insulin syringe and like taking it from a tiny, like You can even see the drop of blood that I get from the femur of the little mice and then running them. And I can tell you that during my entire first 6 months after I was working with this model, all my mice died before I could collect all the information that I wanted. So I spent 6 months of my life behind this 80 mice, and all the mice died before I wanted, like, all the final things I wanted to collect. And it was just very disappointing. But once I started talking to my mentor, I realized that, like, it's all, I go back, it's more about getting the skills than the actual product. So even though I never got a full paper from my 1.5 years of my basic translational research experience during fellowship, I was able to apply to a lot of grants, and I was able to get to know how basic lab works and get to know how postdocs and how PhDs work and think differently than from people who are just clinicians. And the way that I was able to overcome those things is just to realize what I've learned, and because I can use that too. I can tell you that during my, like, I don't know, BMT interview, I said, like, yeah, they asked me, oh, do you work in the lab? And I was like, yeah, I work in the lab and I work with this mice model. And unfortunately, our experiment didn't work, but I was able to learn how to apply for grants, and I was able to learn how to work with the flow cytometry, and I learned how to think about this. And I think that this has given me the opportunity to start thinking about the next projects I want to develop in collaboration with basic researchers. So on, like, more concrete terms, how to manage the challenges, just know that they're going to be there. And especially if you're going to join a lab, I would say, like, at the beginning of my lab year, I said, like, oh, Monday I'm going to do an experiment. On Tuesday, I'm going to, like, collect the data and analyze it. On Wednesday, I'm going to present it to my PI. And then on Thursday, I'm going to start preparing for my next experiment. And then I quickly learned that it was like Monday, I'm going to do my experiment. And then I'm going to be spent Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and maybe the entire next week trying to figure out what went wrong with my experiment so that I could keep going. So do not get disappointed. Think about it more as getting an experience and a skill that you need for your research career, and make sure that you first are able to jump into a great opportunity. So if something comes up with a great opportunity, like my breast cancer mentor that gave me 2 publications, go ahead and do it. But also knowing that even though things fail in the type of lab or type of research that you want to do, it's not working out, then making sure that you're able to, like, know what you got out of it. And then you move on. You move on to the next thing. So that would be the advice for your first question. And then for your second question, how to choose your mentor? It has to be a good fit. I mean, I feel like at the beginning, I didn't have a lot of options. It's just like more like life was telling me, like, look, this person really wants to help you. You should really talk to him, like, or you should really talk to her, and you should, like, make sure that you get a connection. And then later in life, and I realized, like, no, you actually have to interview a lot of people. And actually, like, once I started, like, for my last fellowship, I actually met with tons of people before I actually decided who I wanted my mentor to be. And it was just a better fit because of the opportunities, because of the connection, because of what I've heard about previous mentees. And it's hard, especially when you're just starting, but don't waste an opportunity to connect a little bit more deeper with someone you meet. I would say that's the best advice. And then slowly you're gonna see what this person can offer, is willing to offer, and then making sure that you know what they want from you, right? It's a relationship that this person, the mentor, is gonna help you grow in this way, but the mentor is also gonna expect these things from you, making sure that you're able to fulfill all of those requirements.
Thank you very much, Alexandra.
Thank you, Alexandra. Great advices. And then Luna is asking you, were you involved in any research projects during med school? Alexandra, did we lose you? I believe we did. Let me try to contact her. Just give me 1 minute.
Hey everyone, can you hear me? Sorry, I got disconnected.
Yes, thank you. I was just texting you right now. Thank you. So I was reading to you that Luna have one question that she's asking if you were involved in many research projects during med school.
So during med school, not many. But I was in a good one. So I was able to work with a cancer doctor, an oncologist from Colombia. He had an idea about to quantify what was the research productivity of all the Latin American countries in cancer, and then from those productivities of posters or abstracts presented in major hematology or oncology meetings, how many of them were actually being published. So it seemed like a right project. They wanted help just to initially, what we want from medical students is like manpower to look over millions of databases and like quantify this. But actually, with we have my collaborators and I were able to get a very good paper in cancer. And with that, it was like the only paper that I had when I was applying to residency. I didn't have, I had one case report. But I think that I was able to convey during my interview and with my application process that even though that was my like only paper, after that I had gotten all this experience to PPCR and I had all these skills that I was ready to use. And that showed. So if you look into those graphs that I was showing you, like the match, like how you can interact and say like, well, how many publications you've had and like as an IMG and the specialty, I think you can see what is the average. And it's going to depend on the specialty, but one good publication, it's worth much more than 5 little papers.
Great, thank you, Alexandra. Thank you. And then,
I have one question.
sure, Cesar, go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, Alexandra. Thank you for the talk. I am from Lima. I am planning to apply for the internal medicine residency the next year. So my question is, the initial plan was to apply this year for the residency, but because of the pandemic, I'm not able to apply because of some issues with the USMLE exam. And now I have like one more year to do things maybe to improve my CV for the application. And my main doubt is between doing maybe a research fellowship or maybe doing trying to do clinical rotations or maybe trying to do both. I don't know if I would be able to do both of them. What do you suggest me in that regard? Considering also that because of the pandemic, now the clinical rotations are not in person, there are tele rotations. Although I don't know if there are some, I think there are some in-person rotations available in some states. I am not sure. And I have also a second question. I am sorry for the questions. The second question is, well, I had the opportunity to do 2 months of clinical rotation in the Harrington program, also in Miami last year. I did in internal medicine and in the cardiology team. And I didn't realize this before doing the rotation. I realized it after doing the rotation. Maybe an issue that I had only one, at most 2 weeks for kind of impressing the attending that was at the moment, because in internal medicine, I think every week the attending changes, right? Yeah, and I felt that although I left a good impression in them, maybe it was not the optimal impression. What suggestions do you give me for maybe try to have this optimal relationship that I see you had with your attendings, maybe in your rotations, like you mentioned the Dr. Harrington. What suggestions can you give me?
Okay, so I think both of them might be to link together, like the two questions. Like the first thing is like, should you come here or like you should do research? I think you should try. You can aim for both, and I don't know which one is gonna pull out. Like I don't know which is gonna be, like if you're gonna be able to get the rotation that you want and the research experience that you want. I feel that if you feel that there's deficits in your application, you should try to fix it. So if you feel that the letter of recommendation that you got during the last rotation was not enough, maybe you should even contact the attendings that you were rotated with, because they know you a little bit, and say like, look, I'm in this process, and during the pandemic, I haven't been able to do I don't know, to apply this year. Would you be able to accept me as a researcher, or like, am I able to do some research with you, like something that I could do from wherever you are? But it's going to be complicated. It's going to be tough, but you need to just fix the deficits that you feel. I know, and it's at least 2 weeks to get an impression. But if that's the only opportunity that you had, and you have another.
I'm sorry, Alexandra, can you repeat those 20 last seconds? I didn't hear you because of some delay.
Opportunity to come, take it. And like what you're doing, PPCR or another type of training. Some people do maybe a master's in epidemiology or something else, so that at least you're able to say that during this year you got this skills. Or maybe do a whole R training course and learn how to do data management with R, or like figure out what skill you would need for the specialty that you want and try to get it. Or you can improve your volunteer experiences. I don't know, like there's different ways to get there, but you just have to try to. I do know. Are you hearing me?
Thank you.
Yes, Alexandra, we lost you for some seconds. I don't know if it is your connection in your explanation to Cesar. So she's coming back. She's going to connect again from the computer. She have an issue, but she's coming back soon. Oh, she's coming. You're muted? Now
I don't know. Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay,
Right now.
sorry about that. My computer restarted from the hospital because they needed to restart some Epic thing, and I didn't know. Okay. So, I don't know if you hear the whole answer, or if there's something that I should clarify.
Yes, actually we lost you. So if you can explain again really quickly about what he can do from Peru, or the options that he can do here.
Okay.
Right.
I think trying to get even like one of those long distance courses in epidemiology would be a good idea, like just to try to complement your research training. So that way you can get a little bit more skills in research, or epidemiology, or statistics, or data science with R. Any of those courses are great resources that will, regardless of the career that you have, are going to give you good skills. Also, try to contact your previous persons that you rotated in the Harrington program and ask them directly if they would be willing to supervise a research project that you could maybe do from there, or write it. Like, it's going to be hard because of the data management, but maybe write a case report of something that you saw. So be resourceful, but write to everyone and ask what opportunities are available, especially during the pandemic. And if you're able to find another course or something, that would be a good idea too.
Great.
Thank you very much, Alexandra.
So, and then we got another question for Jenny. She's asking you, in your experience, what is the most important of clerkship or practical time to apply to general surgery? That's a hard one.
That's a hard one because I'm not a surgeon. So I would say try to figure out who has matching surgery in the US and ask their experience about the rotations. For internal medicine, it's easier because if you can see the chart and get a good plan, it's going to be better. For you, you have skills, and I don't know how your rotations are going to be, but I would say just figure out like who has match and ask them what their experience to get there, and just try to mirror, copy, try to get as much help as possible.
Thank you. Then,
I have a question. Hello.
yes,
Hi.
please go ahead, Carmen.
So thank you very much for your talk, Alexandra. I am also from Colombia. Something that I found really interesting was that you're probably the first person that I have heard that has done their training in the US that did their social year in Colombia, the Rural.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that part of the way that they set us up and they show us like this straight road ahead that you showed at the beginning is like the Rural does not go into the equation. And I wanted to know, like, right now I'm about to graduate. I will graduate in January.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in a big debate because I want to continue with my process in the US, but I also think it would be a very interesting and like life-changing thing to do the Rural. So like, can you tell me a little bit how that played into your application?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I don't know. I mean, like, El Olvido que Seremos, like this book about Hector Valles-Zulingui, and like, I just love the idea. And I had friends that had done this year and had such an amazing experience with it that I was when, when else I'm gonna be able to do this, right? Like, just go to the middle of nowhere and work with a very underserved area of where underserved people and actually work as a primary care physician and try my best for my country. And then when I started to like balance it, I decided that what's another year in all of these years? It's like I don't think it made a huge difference. It actually helped me. Like everyone that I talk to, like they all have questions, and I always have crazy stories to tell them about my crazy experience. And I think as a personal thing, it was important for me to do it because I always wanted to make sure that if I ever wanted to go back home, I had all the requirements, and I like, yes, you can keep applying for the process and get accept, like you can get an exemption. But for me, it's like something that I've always wanted to do. So those are the decisions that you have to take in life, and we have to stop pushing ourselves to just do everything all at once. I think this is just the process, and just take the whole thing as a process. Like, yes, now I'm thinking back, it's like 15 years since starting medical school. I've been 7 years here, and like, wow, I'm realizing now that it's, yes, I'm actually where I wanted to be like 15 years ago. Like, yes, I got to train in 2 and 3 amazing institutions in the US, but it was a dream. But I've enjoyed the ride. I've enjoyed every single step of the way, and I feel like I've lived like good every step of the way. So if you want to do it, do it.
Okay.
Like, I think you cannot regret those opportunities.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you, Alexandra. Completely agree with you. And then we don't have other questions. Professor Franny sent you a message. Wonderful talk. Proud of all your accomplishments.
Okay.
Does anyone else have a question for Alexandra before she goes? Please prefer your time and that we have her here today, that she's available for us.
I have a question. My name is Alejandra. Do you hear me? Oh, okay. So I joined a little late to the meeting, but basically my question is, I'm a third year med student, I'm just beginning. But my question is, what did you think when you were a third year medicine student? Like, because thinking about reaching all those goals seems like so far, but
Yeah.
what did you think? Like, what was on your mind when you were beginning?
When I was a third year medical student, I was thinking I wanted to have the opportunity to train here, and I knew that doing the steps was part of it, and I knew that at that level it made sense to try to make them at the same time so that I had them already. And I knew that I wanted to be, I learned in my third year that I wanted to be a hematologist. So I tried to get good skills in it and train and like actually enjoy what I was doing. But I mean, it's more like a life thing, right? We always look so way ahead, but we just have to focus on what is now and what are the next steps for the next few days and for the next few years. So I think that just looking at the entire process is overwhelming. If first of all, I didn't know where it was going to end 15 years ago, or like 13 years ago, or 12 years ago, or even 7 years ago when I was applying, when I started my intern year. And I think just every step of life is just a little challenge that you accomplish, and then you're ready for the next challenge. But as long as you're like try your best with each part of the challenge, I think at the end, the sum of those challenges are gonna make sure to show that you're a great person, or a great candidate, or that you work so hard to get where you were. Because I think like this process is as anyone else, even if they do the residency at home, you have to work a little bit for every step of the way. So as a third year, I would concentrate on being a great clinician, know what you have to learn in medical school. Like being a good medical student is going to help you throughout your career, and then it's going to help you be a better clinician when you're a resident. Start learning about your exams. Start getting more interested in developing those skills that we talk about. Maybe join a research lab or in a research meeting, research group. Start to get some mentors and just don't overwhelm yourself. What's important today? What should I do today?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you, Alex. So, any other questions, guys? Please feel free. Patri is sending you her regards. Do you remember?
Oh, thanks. Yes, of course.
Yeah, she's joined. And okay, I believe that's all. Okay.
Okay.
So great. So thank you, Alexandra. Any final words to all the people who joined us today?
No, just if you're thinking about doing, just start the process and hope for the best and enjoy it. And if you have any questions, I put my contact information there. I'm more than happy to answer any questions afterwards. But don't get overwhelmed, and just one step at a time, and you can get to where you want to be. It's just going to take some effort and it's going to take some time, but enjoy the ride.
Great. Thank you, Alex. So, and thank you all for joining today. We're really happy to have you. It was an honor, Alex. You gave great advices. Your passion and your energy show, and we know that all these people have a more clearer way on what to do and what to expect in the process. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you. Also, have a good night. And as always, it is recorded, and you can also find it in YouTube. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.